We've seen how we can add form buttons and shapes to trigger macros, which are great, but really they're only relevant for macros that work in a single sheet, because once you move away from that sheet, you cannot see the button or shape to click it. An alternative to that is to actually have buttons on the ribbons. So up here, on any of these ribbons, we can add buttons that will trigger our macros. Now, the macros that you would place on ribbons would tend to be ones that are in your personal macro workbook, because they're only available to you, and the ribbon buttons will only be available to you. So everything works on your copy of Excel. So how do we go about adding our own buttons? Well, firstly, we need to go into the options of Excel. So that's File and Options, and customize the ribbon. Now, where we have a choice here of popular commands, we can actually click the drop down and choose macros, and it will list all the macros that are currently available. So that's everything in the personal macro workbook. There's actually 2 solver ones available here, but we're not interested in those. And we can see the green and the red highlight macros that we created earlier. We also have 2 others, a run form and an age one, that are customized for my machine. Now, how do we add them across? Well, we firstly need to choose which of the current ribbons we would like to add them to. The home one, insert, page layout, formulas, data, review, view, developer. Well, because I use them a lot, I'm going to add them to the home ribbon. Now, within the home ribbon, there are numbers of groups, clipboard, font, alignment, and I need to add my own group. I cannot just add these macros to any one of the existing groups. So I add my own group. New group, and it's called New Group Custom. I want to rename that and call it My Macros. OK, and that creates a group on the ribbon. If I click OK, I can see I now have a little group at the end of the home ribbon called My Macros. So let's go back to Options, Customize Ribbon, and Macros. And I now simply add My Macros to the My Macros group. So let's select that on the right and select Age on the left and add, Green and add, Red and add, and Form and add. So it's added my 4 macros to the home ribbon. If I then say OK, I can see they've then appeared here, Age, Green, Red, and Form. Now they're not very presentable, that icon's quite awful really. So we go back to File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and on the right where I can see my 4 macros, I can select one at a time, so I can go for the age one, and I can click rename, and instead of it saying personal.xlsb age, I can just call it calculate age, and choose a much more desirable icon from this massive list. So instead of that top left one that looks like a little spaceship, I can choose one that's more appropriate. So this little person icon would look quite good. OK, and then I can go to the green, rename. I'm going to call it green format. And there's a nice little green rectangle. That green rectangle would be more appropriate. OK, and you can see the icons are then being used here. The red highlight, rename, red format, and we need a red rectangle. Go for that one so it's in the same style as the green one. And the last one, run form, rename. This form actually changes the case, so I'm going to call it change case, and then we'll have some letters there. That would be appropriate. OK, so I've renamed them and I've chosen 4 better icons. When I say OK, you see that they then appear much more presentable on the home ribbon. So I've got calculate age, and then the next 3, green, red, and change case. So each of those 4 are my 4 macros, but they're now being changed into little triggers that appear on the My Macros grouping of the home ribbon. So all I need to do is see if they work. So if I highlight a few cells and try the green formatting, we know that it works. Highlight a few there, click the red, know that it works. If we then put a bit of text in, we can demonstrate the other macros. Highlight those and the AA for change case. Let's go uppercase, OK, and it changes all the text to uppercase. And then the last one, calculate age. Doesn't matter which cell you're on because it doesn't do anything to the sheet. Calculate age. What is your date of birth? It's August 2nd, 1970. OK. You are 42 years old. So the macros themselves are stored in the personal macro workbook on my machine. The ribbon I have changed is the home ribbon, only my home ribbon on my machine. No one else will see this. and I've added some macro options by going to File, Options, Customize Ribbon, choosing the macro list, and that will list all the currently open macros, so everything in the personal book really. And then I've added that to a new custom group over here called My Macros. And each of the macros I've renamed the tooltip that will hover over and change the picture so that it's more appropriate. Now I can change the order of these, perhaps move the green one to the top so that where we've got less screen space, when I go OK, the green one then becomes the more important one and obviously takes the big slot, and the other ones are then listed smaller beside it. But it means I now don't need to remember keyboard shortcuts, and I don't have buttons on each worksheet. I simply call it from the ribbon at the top.